Hey guys, Joe Bonamassa here. Sit back and enjoy the legendary John Oates on this exciting episode of KTBA's Artist Spotlight.
Emotional loss is always a good fodder for the songwriter. You know, it's always a good place to kind of lean on if you know. It just seems to elicit the right, you know, the stronger emotions than kind of happy songs in some way or shape or form.
And then you stayed in New York, you and Daryl.
We stayed in New York. We actually recorded our first 3 albums in New York. We recorded 2 with Arif Mardin, and we recorded 1 with Todd Rundgren called War Babies, which was more an experimental rock album. And then we went out to LA and we recorded with Chris Bond, who was also a fellow Philadelphian who had been in our band. And he had moved to LA and he had become a producer, and he was really locked in with the studio musicians at the time in LA. So we went to LA, and here again, Chris Bond surrounded us with incredible LA musicians. You know, we had Lee Sklar playing bass.
Sure.
You know, we had Jeff Porcaro playing drums. We had, you know, we had so many amazing people playing on those records. And that's where we recorded Sarah Smile and Rich Girl and all that. And we spent we did 3 albums in LA, but we never really felt comfortable being there. We were just there in between tours to record. Then eventually went back to New York. But really where it came was, it was a really unique time in Philadelphia in the early to mid 60s, where it was, you know, I like to think of it as it was just the ultimate place to be for musical inspiration. We had the Uptown Theater on North Broad Street, and every Saturday night would be a show. And I got to see the greats, the all-time greats of R&B, you know. I saw Stevie Wonder play Fingertips when he was 12. I saw Sam and Dave, The Temptations, James Brown, you know, The Miracles, you know, the Coasters, on and on and on. And so I saw, not only did I see and hear this great R&B music of probably the golden era of American R&B, but you know, I started understanding the stagecraft and what it took to get an audience excited, and what, you know, various kind of moves that worked. But at the same time that was happening, I was just, you know, hanging out with Jerry Ricks, going to the Second Fret and the Main Point, and hearing the greats of the American traditional music revival. You know, Doc Watson, Mississippi John Hurt, Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee, Joan Baez, you know, all the later interpreters, people like Joan Baez and people like that, Dave Van Ronk. So I was getting to hear them at the Folk Festival in Philadelphia, which is going on now for over 50 years. Yes. So I'd go from one, you know, I was like wearing 2 hats, musical hats. But the experience of getting to see these legendary and, you know, original performers was it could never happen again in the same way. So I was just at the right place in the right time, and it really, you know, it affected me on a deep level, you know, and it made me the musician that I am.
Yeah, I remember you wrote that Daryl took you to the Apollo.
Yeah, when the first thing we did together was, well, when my band broke up, the Masters broke up, I joined Daryl's group as a backup guitar player, because they were essentially an a cappella group. And then Daryl's group kind of fell apart. But before that happened, we went to New York to do a showcase at the, I think it was at the Gaslight down in the Village. And after we did an early evening showcase, Daryl and his group were friends with the Temptations, and so he said, we're going to go to the Apollo. And for me, that was it, you know. It was, and not only did we go to the Apollo, we went in the back door into the dressing room, hung out with the original Temptations lineup, you know, David Ruffin, Eddie Kendrick, Paul Williams, Otis Williams, and Paul Franklin. And it was just, you know, an amazing. I was blown away. And so we sat in the front row and watched the Temptations, and I had seen them before, but you know, now we're at the Apollo, sitting in the front row, you know, kind of thing. And then years later, Daryl and I reopened the Apollo Theater in the 80s when it had been, you know, refurbished, and we brought Eddie Kendrick and David Ruffin with us, and we reprised that Temptation experience. So now it was like full circle. Not, you know, at first I was sitting in the front row watching, now I was on stage. And it was, to be honest with you, it was like a natural psychedelic high, to be honest with you, because it felt like I was watching myself, you know, in a dream.
15 years later.
In a dream, yeah.